It's the weekend after 2K Games and Digital Extremes, The Darkness 2 came out, and I'm sitting here wondering just how to score this game. I love the first game. In fact, it easily remains in my top 10 all-time favorite Xbox 360 games. Perhaps even one of my favorite games on any platform. So I went to The Darkness 2 with both incredibly high hopes and quite a bit of worry. Would The Darkness 2 really stand up, or would my love of the first game completely overshadow any good this sequel brought? It's a slippery slope, I admit, but in the end, and I'll just come right out and say it, The Darkness 2 is a great game with a few fairly significant issues. The most obvious problems coming if you're playing the game on a PC as I did. I know that the FOV of the game is quite the hot button issue right now, and I will certainly offer up my opinion on that after the main review is done, so be sure to stick around for that at the tail end of the video. For those unfamiliar with the series, The Darkness 2 takes a bit of a creative spin on the comic book series that spawned the first game. Throughout the game, you play as one Jackie Estacado, head of a crime family in New York and the current vessel for a demonic power known as the Darkness, hence the name. Believing that the power was under his control, it surges back to life after an attempted hit by a mysterious group called the Brotherhood. The Brotherhood is a group looking to take control of the Darkness and will do anything they can to take it from Jackie. Needless to say, both Jackie and the Darkness don't want for this to happen, and you'll spend the game trying to take out any and everybody that gets in your way through the use of guns, more guns, demon arms, and a little demon pal that is with you through most of the game called the Darkling. The story is honestly quite good, and feels solid from start to finish. In fact, in a world where first-person titles fall flat with the story, or have really crap endings, rage, it's refreshing to experience such an engaging story in the genre. It's flushed out through interactions with characters, mid-level monologues from Jackie, and from angered growls from the Darkness itself. Throughout the campaign, Jackie will even have a few interactions with his dead girlfriend Jenny, leading to the question if he really is seeing all that he believes he sees, or if it's all just a product of his own insanity brought on by the Darkness. It is these particular interactions that really pack an emotional punch into a genre that is typically all about jacked up machismo. The first game did an absolutely amazing job taking players on an emotional roller coaster, and this game certainly continues the trend, albeit to a bit of a lesser degree. There's a lot of story here, and I really don't want to dive too deep into it. It's honestly better experienced than it is just having someone sit here and explain it to you. Full of as many twists and turns as the first game, it goes without saying that Jackie will not spend his entire journey in New York. Fans of the first game should be happy to hear that an area outside of New York is present, as is an otherworldly locale. Sad to say, though, that this area is not nearly as prominent or as interesting to experience as the World War I styled Otherworld was from the first game. Digital Extremes did a lot right with The Darkness 2. The guns feel solid, and while there isn't too much variety between them, they all feel adequate enough for kicking a lot of ass. The real joy comes when you combine either single or dual wielding weapons with using your demon arms at the same time. This quad wielding technique is not some minor gameplay addition, but a skill that is almost required that you master to become a proficient killing machine as the game progresses. Speaking of progression, new to The Darkness 2 is a skill tree style upgrade system. 4 main spokes allow Jackie to focus on upgrading his abilities with the Darkness, his skills with the weapons, or any combination of these skills in both offensive and defensive roles. Jackie can spend essence points at predetermined locations throughout a level. These essence points are acquired simply by doing just about anything. Kill someone? Points. Destroy a light? Points. Find any of the game's hidden items called relics? Oh, lots of points. Eating a heart? You better believe that gives you a lot of points. The real draw comes in finding creative ways to kill your enemies, with execution moves offering up the means to earn the most points if successfully pulled off. The game moves at a much faster pace than its predecessor, which may or may not be a good thing. Gone are the more free-roaming areas as you travel from story area to story area, as in the first game. The Darkness 2 is a much more linear game, which is actually something I was a little disappointed with. Sure, it tends to cut out a lot of the fluff that may artificially inflate gameplay time, but it felt like it was trimmed back too far to the point it lost a lot of the exploratory feeling that was prominent in the first game. This also cut back on a lot of the little extras, such as the phone numbers in the first game that Jackie could call for various Easter egg style conversations. However, this increased pace really kicks the action portions of the game up quite a few notches. The first game feels as slow as molasses when compared to the more frantic nature of this game. It's honestly a step in the right direction so far as these particular gameplay elements are concerned. There's a lot less downtime when you're scoring off against multiple enemies in an area, slicing one in half with a car door while starting to turn and immediately fire off some Uzi rounds into a guy just to your right, followed up by staggering and executing another that's coming up from behind, all the while the fourth is occupied with some pesky flies. Everything is pulled off quite easily on a mouse and keyboard setup, despite the fact that you're essentially controlling 4 appendages at once. The sound is quite spectacular, with amazing voice work carried out by musician Mike Patton as he once again lends his vocal talents to the darkness. Jackie comes packed with a new voice thanks to Brian Bloom and makes for one damn convincing New York native. The other cast of characters all showcase fantastic voice work, which is rounded out by some rather impressive visuals. The soundtrack is era appropriate and also features a few licensed tracks from the 90s that you can listen to courtesy of a few jukeboxes within the game. Due to Digital Extreme's taking over development of the series, a new proprietary engine was made use of. The physics are fantastic, allowing for environmental kill opportunities as well as some very satisfying skewering of enemies. Even just flipping enemies into the air and slamming or knocking them around with your darkness arm looks quite good. To those who enjoy a little visceral violence in their games, the darkness comes packed with plenty. Rip enemies in half, bite their heads off, impale them with pull cues, rip out their hearts, pull their spine out of their ass, yeah, well, you get the idea. It gets to be quite violent and very bloody. The visuals are given a more vibrant punch compared to its predecessor, featuring more colorful locations and far more detail in just about every aspect. The team decided to make use of a hand-drawn art style for the game's look. A lot of thick, hard lines provide much of the detail on many of the game's surfaces. These detailed, hand-drawn textures and inclusion of hard shadows across environments and the character models make for a very unique style. It's this unique style that may make many, including myself at first, draw comparisons to the Borderlands look, but as you play and view more of what the game has to offer, the comparisons quickly disappear and you will notice the styles aren't quite on the same level with one another. It's quite impressive how much work went into making this game look like a living comic book, and I really hope to see more of this style in the future. Gone is the tacked-on competitive multiplayer from the first game, thankfully. Instead, The Darkness 2 features a series of co-op missions called Vendettas that allow for you and up to 3 friends to play together in a series of story-related scenarios. These missions take place at the same time as the single-player game as you play as one of Jackie's 4 powerful henchmen. Each character has their own unique playstyle and each features their own unique darkness ability. The story in these scenarios fill in a few of the blanks left by the main game. They aren't required to understand the plot, but they are nice supplemental chunks of information that let you see what's going on while Jackie's off battling his own demons. The only real complaint I have about these missions is that they're often a bit too easy and far too short, but they are a nice addition to the game nonetheless. Now, I've gushed about the gameplay. I absolutely adore the story. The sounds and visuals are spectacular. It almost sounds like it's too good to be true, right? Well, yes. It is too good to be true. The game does have some glaring issues that I just can't ignore. First off, the linearity of the game is, as mentioned, just a slap across the face when the first game featured much more open environments and opportunities for at least some exploration. An example of the linearity is the fact that I was able to easily pick up all of the game's collectibles in my first playthrough without much difficulty at all. They are typically just a few steps off of the well-beaten path, whereas in the first game, the collectibles were scattered throughout the city and required a bit more than a few additional steps to find. Another issue that I had was the fact that while the Darkness is still vocal, it seemed as though he was far more vocal in the first game, and provided more story in that particular title. Perhaps this is just balanced out by the fact that there are more story elements coming from other areas in this game, but it would have been nice to hear more from the title character himself. Really, it's a great voice. As mentioned, the lack of a more fully fleshed out Otherworld portion of the game is a bit of a downer. I wish more was done with this area, but I have this gut feeling that if there is a sequel, and I'm not saying that there definitely will be or anything, but if there is one, I have a feeling the Otherworld will be more prominently featured. My completion time for the first playthrough of the single player was just over 6 hours. This was on the 3rd of 4 available difficulties, and I was taking my time, talking to the NPCs multiple times, and again, finding those collectibles. I would have loved to have seen the story go on for another couple of hours, at least, but there isn't much I can do about that. Now, for the biggest offender in the Darkness 2. PC gamers kind of get the short end of the stick again in terms of the visuals. Now, don't get me wrong, they look great, but if you take a look at the options for video customization, it's as sparse as can be. There are no options there for AA, AF, or just about anything else. Things like this aren't really excusable for modern day PC releases. I mean, granted, if a game lacks AA or AF options, players aren't going to go and get ill because of it. I don't recall there being any cases where someone has gotten sick because of too many jaggies on their screen. However, the biggest issue here is the incredibly narrow field of view featured in the Darkness 2. It's almost painfully narrow in the game to the point that if people were getting motion sick in a game like Half-Life 2 when it was first released, it's almost a guarantee that you will want to avoid this game. I, fortunately, do not suffer from motion sickness or feelings of unease with a narrow FOV, and it generally isn't all that noticeable in the heat of the battle. But during the game's slower parts, such as when you're simply roaming around Jackie's place and you're walking here and there, the narrow FOV is incredibly apparent and very distracting. I felt as though I had toggled some hidden zoom feature while walking around, and it was so distracting I kept bumping into things and people that I couldn't easily notice due to the narrow FOV. Outside areas seemed okay at first, but once you realize just how narrow the game's FOV is, battles even get to be a bit of an issue as you quickly lose sight of enemies that would normally be in your view at even slightly higher than default values. I know that a certain cynical person made quite the scene last week in his own video complaining about this very issue, and I'm going to try to avoid that route, especially if it means that I would have to act like an entitled jerk on Twitter. But I digress. The head of 2K Games community, 2K Elizabeth, relayed that which she was told from Digital Extremes. It was made clear that the narrow view wasn't because of technical limitations, despite her words being twisted around from certain others. Instead, it was a design decision from Digital Extremes. I can maybe accept this excuse if valid reason was given, but it doesn't really seem like a definitive explanation was provided from Digital Extremes. I have read that the developers have heard the numerous complaints and will hopefully address this issue in an upcoming patch, but this is really something that should have been addressed prior to the game's release on the PC. Interestingly, a similar case befell Rage when it was first released. ID felt as though their method for determining graphical fidelity was the best and provided no means to alter the visuals through the game's UI settings. Users had to dive into config files and manually alter a number of variables, which was also just as inexcusable as this FOV issue is. ID later rectified the issue through a few patches that gave far more visual control into the player's hands. There are a number of standard features that PC gamers have come to expect in shooters released on the platform. Give players control over their visuals in every respect, and chances are you will be adored by the community for giving them what they want without any hassle. I don't know if this is all a product of a game being in development for both consoles and PC, but I would like to hope that this isn't the case. Deus Ex Human Revolution proved that the game can be multi-platform, but still offer up a variety of options and visual perks to those playing on the PC that console players don't need to change on their unified architecture. Saints Row the Third also proved that extra tender loving care on the PC version can go a long way to keeping fans happy and providing incentive to choose the PC over a console version of the game. I understand that in terms of multi-platform titles, the PC generally comes out as the weakest in terms of sales, but that really doesn't excuse any developer from treating PC exclusive players as second-rate consumers. It's little additions such as total control over graphical options, wider FOV settings, and even things like full-screen windowed mode that could end up being the determining factor between a consumer spending their money on your product or simply looking elsewhere, such as to a competitor's product. I know this is not really the fault of publisher 2K Games, and it certainly is not the fault of the messenger 2K Elizabeth, but it is a shame that a few of 2K's latest, highly anticipated releases suffered from similar problems at their launch. Borderlands was also hit with complaints of having a narrow FOV for the PC release. This was in addition to a few other issues with the game's UI that didn't really seem to be catered towards PC players all that well. I don't consider myself exclusive to any one platform. I play games on my Xbox 360 on a regular basis just as I play games on my PC on a regular basis. It has gotten to the point, however, that if given a choice, I will choose the PC release as my computer has finally reached a point where I can enjoy some nice additional eye candy that consoles can't provide. I have a feeling that those who build insane gaming rigs feel the same as I do, whether or not they also own a console. It just seems like a shame to penalize a group of consumers due to oversight or with these generic design decision excuses. With all this said, when it comes down to it, if you can look past the narrow FOV, then by all means, pick up The Darkness 2. As a huge fan of the original, I enjoyed this one immensely, and highly recommend the game both to returning fans and those who may be new to the series. If you are new to the series, The Darkness 2 does have a video before the start of the game that will tell you what happened in the first game. New Game Plus provides incentive to play through the game again with your unlocked skills available from the start. The co-op mode provides some additional gameplay variety that you can share with friends, and the emotionally fueled single-player story is wonderfully constructed. I will provide a link in the description below to the Steam page for The Darkness 2. While there is a demo for the game, it doesn't really do the full game enough justice, so be sure to keep that in mind. As always, this has been Zips with Total Gaming Network and CS Nation. We'll catch you next time.
No one blames you for what you did. For me, it's not about the money. It's the art.